Hi, Bob. How are you?
Hi, Sheena. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Good to see a photo of you.
Oh, I'll turn my camera on. Hold on. There you go.
Very nice.
Are you in the office or are you home?
I'm in the office. Yep.
Oh dear, I'm sorry.
I'm used to it by now. I've been coming in every day.
Yeah, I guess you're back doing that thing, huh?
Yeah, staff is coming in a couple of days a week. I'm going to figure out if we move on or stay this way for a while.
Right.
But we're getting it done, I think. So we're okay.
Good. Good.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Shino.
Hello.
Hey, Patricia.
Hi. I'm still away.
Where are you?
Florida,
You're in Florida. What are you doing down there?
visiting my folks. I'll be back tomorrow.
Oh, I didn't realize your folks were down there. Did they move down there? They used to be on Long Island, right?
Yeah, yeah. They retired there.
Oh,
Yeah. Hey, Joshua.
Hello,
Thanks for
Patricia,
joining.
Bob, Shino. How are you guys doing?
fine, thanks. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you for the promotion. I guess when I joined, I was like, oh, can they hear me? And I was like, oh, I don't think so. So
Bob, could you promote Sarah Medina Camascoli? She's one of our panelists.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll be host. I guess Mar and Chuno will be co-host or for tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello, Sarah.
Hey y'all, how are you?
Yeah.
Hi,
I'm just
Sarah.
waiting for the rest of the committee to join before we start. I don't think we have quorum as yet.
I'm sorry, Patricia. Besides Sheena, who else is going to be a co-host?
Mar Fitzgerald.
Okay, I got it. Okay, I'm going to make you the host now.
Thanks. Welcome, everyone. We're just giving our committee members time to join the meeting before starting. Let's give it a few more minutes. Thank you. Do we have quorum, Mar?
Let me see, sorry, I just logged back on. Yeah, we're okay with quorum if we have board members. We don't-
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I'll get started then.
Yeah, we're fine.
Welcome to our March 2022 Schools and Education Committee. Tonight's meeting is co-hosted by the Schools and Education Council Consortium, who Shino Tanakawa is the co-chair of and is also a CB2 public member. My name is Patricia Laria, and I'm the committee chair. Mar Fitzgerald is the vice chair. I'm just going to name off my CB2 members. Akila Asqui, Keen Berger, Amy Brenner, Rich Cachapolo, Matt Metzger, Georgia Silvera Siemens, and public members Michael Markowitz and Barbara Glassman. And I see with us tonight, we have Ginny Kiley, our CB2 chair, former CB2 board chair Carter Booth, and Bob Gormley, district manager. Hi, hello. The agenda tonight, we are going to switch it. We are going to start with the Bleecker Street School update and followed by the Peer Defense Project lawsuit, and then discussion of food service bonuses. Before we get to that, I just want to take care of some housekeeping. Meeting protocols, please be respectful to whoever is speaking. If you have a different view, ask a question or raise your hand. Please do not type derogatory comments in Q&A. Attendees will be on mute until Q&A. Use Q&A and raise hand to ask questions. Due to time constraints, we may not be able to answer all questions. Please abide by Q&A norms. I just want to acknowledge any elected official reps that are here. I see Nicole Bart from Council Member Eric Botcher's office, Marissa Mavrich from Congresswoman Maloney's office. And if I missed anyone, I'll circle back. We're going to start with the Bleecker Street School update. I just wanted to, and Joshua
Yes.
Adams, who is the External Affairs Manager of the School Construction Authority, will give us an update. But before you start, Joshua, I just wanted to say I also invited tonight NYU, and I invited Arlene Peralta Avila, who is the Senior Director of NYU Community Engagement. And however, she's unable to join us tonight, but she wanted me to share this comment. We welcome the addition of a school in the neighborhood, as we would imagine would many members of the NYU community. We look forward to working with the SEA to better understand their next steps. And that's what she wanted me to share. So I will kick it off to you, Joshua, for your update. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so update is of course would be pretty short. So the Bleecker School, in short, is a new capacity project for the SEA, which was to build a school on a vacant parcel to be provided to us as part of the land use and zoning approvals as part of the NYU core project. So this school was in our FY 20 to 24 capital plan. I think I mentioned with a capacity of 312 students. The intention date for us to move forward on this project was for December 31st, 2021. That was the expiration for us to let NYU know that we were going to move forward with that to building the school. We did receive a letter from NYU in late December offering us the extension for the to extend the deadline to provide notice of intent to NYU with the date for December 31st, 2023, and to provide the notice of construction no later than December 31st, 2025. we had met with CB2 in mid-January to inform this letter, and then on January 24th we responded to NYU. So SCA did accept the option. So right now we have a new deadline for December 31st of 2023 to let NYU know that SCA would move forward with intent on that construction and to commence construction no later than December 31st, 2025. Right now, I don't have any additional updates other than that, but we won't be making any decisions on the school for quite some time, at least not till 2023, before the intent deadline.
Thank you for that, Joshua. I'd also want to give background what this committee has done in regards to the Bleecker Street School. From 2014 to 2021, CB2, this committee has passed 7 resolutions in support of funding the Bleecker Street School. And we, in our declarations, we specifically says that it would, like dyslexia, a critical education, equity issue for NYC students would be one of the things to support, like a school there in that site. What else have we done? Also background, the space that we're talking about is 100,000 square feet. It's going to be a K-8 school. And once this gets funded, we are hoping that this school will serve the educational needs of our community with particular focus on possibility of developing school to serve students with dyslexia and other learning-based disabilities. I don't know if there's anybody else in our committee that would like to add. Janine, do you have anything to add? Any questions from anyone else?
That was a good recap. I do want to just reiterate that with SCA said, make sure I understand it, that you have until the end of the option period, which was this case 12/31, to exercise the option. So I think there was some confusion in the community that the university was surprised when the city exercised this option, which the city had every right to do so. So I just want to make sure that there's clarity that that an option has one expiration date. It doesn't, it's not like, oh, we haven't exercised it 2 months ahead of time. It's not happening. So I just want to be clear on that.
Right. Yes. So we have until December 31st, 2021 to provide that intent to move forward, and then 2025 of the same date and time to move forward with construction.
All right, so I'll go back to my committee first. Any questions on anything that needs to be clarified? All right, I'll go to our attendees. Are there any questions regarding? Okay, I'm going to elevate Richard. Okay, Richard, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Oh, before you do that, I have a committee member first. Let me go to Georgia Silvera-Siemens.
Hi, thanks. I'm curious, what can happen between the declaration of intent and the declaration to start construction? That 2-year lag time, what can happen there? Thank you.
I believe that time would be for us to bid out the project and such, go over any design specifics for the school, and prep any documents or construction with the whoever the contractor is who wins the award to move forward up until construction.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. So, can I just add a follow-up to that?
Sure.
So, is the declaration of intent a 100% commitment to building the school?
Well, we haven't made any decisions yet. We won't make a decision until we get closer to that time. But it's my understanding the intent would be, if we provide that intent, then we would move forward with the process towards, obtaining a contractor or designing and then sending the project out for bid to move forward with construction. But of course, we won't have a decision until we get closer to that date.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Keen.
And so I guess that answer, Joshua, was no. It's not at all decided, really. It's just still as a possibility. But in terms of student population, how close are we to deciding that it should be for children with dyslexia or other learning disabilities? Or is that what's the status of that?
I don't have that on hand right now. I believe that would be up to the DOE. Once our job is to go out there when we build a new school or an addition, is to build that addition, and it's up to DOE to fill in those spaces.
Right, so you've already getting people to bid on the contract? I mean,
No bidding has happened yet. None of that process would happen until after we move forward with intent. Right now, between this time and the December 31st, 2023, there's no decisions happening until then. After we submit any type of intent to move forward with the project, then all that process would begin in terms of going through design and going through bid and award, and then moving towards construction.
Got it. Well, then didn't we just get intent? Isn't that what just happened?
No, SCA received a letter from NYU because the intent to move forward expired of December 31st, 2021. Prior to that date, NYU provided SCA with a letter offering the option to extend the deadline to move forward with that intent. So the deadline is now December 31st, 2023 to provide intent, and December 31st, 2023, December 31st, 2025 to commence actual construction. Hopefully that clarifies or clears it
Yeah,
up.
right. So essentially the mayor and the chancellor are the ones who have to do something about that. Is that right? So it's a political thing now?
I can't speak to the specifics of that, but I mean, as far as the SCA goes, we won't make any decisions until we get closer to the 2023 date. And it's up to DOE to fill that space once we finish with that work. If we move forward with the
Thank you.
project.
It's
Mhm.
still kind of murky to me, but okay.
Maybe I can jump in here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joshua. In December of 2021, the city exercised its option, which was due to expire at the end of the month. And on December 26th, Monday, December 26th, NYU sends a letter to the city saying, hey, if you want to extend your option by 2 years, we'll let you. And with that new information, sometime in January, the SBA accepted the offer to extend the option.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So it is confusing.
Did that help, Keen? Not really, no.
Basically,
still
the
don't
city
quite get it.
decided it was going to build a school, and then NYU put a different offer on the table, and the city accepted it, which was to extend the option 2 more years.
Right. So the city did decide it was going to build a school?
And then it said, we're going to accept an option instead. So they went a different course.
Shino probably
Joshua,
understands it.
Yes,
Do
yes.
you understand it, Shino?
Keen, if I can clarify this by following up with you, if you want to provide this information to Patricia, shoot me an email, and then I'll follow up with Keen, or follow up with you to provide the information to Keen and any other folks later this week.
Great, that would be very helpful.
That make that clear, that way we can, completely clarify any confusion.
Okay, thank you,
Just,
Josh.
yeah, so if Trish, you want to send it to me, or if Keen, you want to drop your email in the chat, I can just copy it down and, okay,
Okay, all right.
whichever works for
Send
you
it to
folks.
Patricia and you'll send it to me, Patricia, okay?
Yes, yes. I'll email you her information, Joshua. All
Okay.
right, so I'm going now to our attendee, Richard Blodgett. I hope I didn't ruin your name. Go ahead, sir. Richard, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the big question in the neighborhood is when will Morton Williams close? And I guess what you're saying is that the NYU has extended the option for 2 years, so probably nothing will happen in that time frame. And then, it's unclear what will happen after that, and it could be further extension. I mean, it's very murky, I guess, in terms of when will the Morton Williams have to close. Anybody want to comment on that? Because that's what a lot of people in the neighborhood care about.
Right. I don't have any details on the Morton Williams. I don't know if the community board has any information on that.
Well, they spoke to it at a community board meeting. Morton Williams did a while back, but it was very unclear then too what the timing was. So I guess the answer is the timing of what the SCA is going to do is still unclear and could go on for quite a while. Is that reasonable?
Well, as of now, as I mentioned, our intent to respond to the option is still set for 12/31/2023. So as we get closer to that date, we'll have more information to provide you in the community. Specifically about the school, maybe not so much the Morton Williams. I think that's more of a issue either with NYU or private or with the business itself.
Okay, that's my only question. I was just looking to see if there's any clarity on the issue of Morton Williams, and I guess there isn't. So that's the way it is. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I did invite NYU, but they had other obligations this evening. So did you hear what I read at the top of the meeting?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so that was their response to me for tonight's meeting.
Okay, so my question has been answered as well as it can be answered, I guess.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going next. Jeffrey Rowland, you can unmute yourself.
Unmute, I'm unmuted, and I'm starting my video. My two quick questions are, the first one is, should the SCA decline to exercise the option before the deadline, will the community board be notified exactly at the same time as NYU or prior to that? And the second question I have is, if they do exercise the option, is 2 years the period sufficient for design and commencement of construction, which, as I understand it, they actually have to start within 2 years, so that by the 2-year deadline after the exercising. So is 2 years enough time to design it, bid it out, and begin construction, or will it revert back to NYU because of that? And if you can answer those questions, that'll be all I have. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, the CB will be notified when we sent the original letter to letting them know that we were exercising the option. We sent the letter out to the community board and relevant elected officials that same day. As far as the timeline to design the project, I don't want to say exactly that it would be sufficient. I'm not aware anything can come up between that time in terms of design. But we want to build this school. It's a capacity project for us. So we want to be able to provide, more seats to the community. So it would definitely be something that we move as quickly as possible and as safely as possible on.
What happens though if you fail to meet that deadline?
I don't have specifics on that. I don't think we've failed to meet a deadline on a designed project before. Otherwise, so anytime we've ever designed a new school, yeah, we've moved forward with it.
Has the school construction authority designed and commenced any school within 2 years?
I don't have it off the top of my head, but we do have a school M502 that we have to have open by 2024. And we are going to have that done. It's a new school. We're going to have it done and open by, I believe, the end of 2024.
So there is risk involved. We might miss that deadline and things might go awry.
Well, I can't speak to that, but obviously in any type of development or construction project, there could be any concerns or unforeseen issues, such as, when you're developing on any
Well,
new piece of parcel.
I understand that. I understand that. My concern is that NYU is in a position to claim that you violated their contract if they're including a 2-year deadline in this proposal. So that's what concerns me, is that is NYU backing you into a corner that you can't fulfill?
Well, I don't have those answers off the top of my head, but it's something I can follow up with you on that one on Jeffrey.
Or just the committee, and I'll check with them. Thank you.
For Patricia, just include the concerns to Patricia
Sure.
in addition to what's provided by Keenan and folks. And
Sure,
they
I
can get
will.
those
I'm
followed up.
keeping a list.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm next person up. Marissa, I'm going to promote. You can unmute yourself, Marissa.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, awesome. So our office, the Office of Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, has been, monitoring this situation, and we've heard concerns regarding both the school and the Morton Williams as well from the community. So my question to both Joshua and the committee is, I just want to understand the exact need for the school. In previous conversations with the SCA, it's been said that there is not an immediate seat need for the school, but I do understand that local education advocates have disagreed with that. And so I'd really just love to hear what everyone on the committee thinks, just to clarify that a little bit for our office.
Hi, Marissa. Patricia here.
Yes.
Well, we've written, I can share those resolutions with you, but there is a need for a school that will service print-based learning needs of kids who are, that have dyslexia or other learning disabilities. And we've been advocating for that since 2014. So there is a need in our community and in the city for such a school. I'm not sure if there's anyone else here that would like to chime in on this. Maybe Janine, because she's worked on this longer.
Sure, I just want to add that obviously, the definition of need is, we're happy to share the historical analysis that we've done. But if you look at the schools, particularly downtown, a lot of these schools are, over 120 years old. So in addition to, there is a need for modern, fully accessible, fully, technology compliant buildings with good ventilation and egress and so forth. And, frankly, a lot of the stock, and I think Joshua knows this, is, the biggest school building boom was in around 1900, so 120 years ago. So I think there is a need, and there certainly is a need for a modern facility centrally located in the heart of NYU's campus. And I wouldn't be surprised if NYU professors and university officials who recruit faculty would view that as a benefit, the same way they would view the grocery store as a benefit to the NYU community.
Certainly, Patricia, I would really appreciate any supporting information you had regarding that, just so that our office can review that. And then I guess just to ask Joshua as well, just to speak to that seat need and kind of what the view of that is from the SCA.
Right. From my understanding, Marissa, that is correct. It's not an immediate seat need in the area. But it was a capacity project or for our FY 2024 plan.
Got it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I have a clarifying question for Joshua. When you say start construction, what does broadly, could you define that? It's not quite, when you say broadly define it, could you please?
Commence actual construction. My understanding would be for us to have our contractor there mobilized on site, setting up staging, actually working on the site. My understanding, yeah. So whenever we say mobilization or commencing actual construction, at least from our end, it means we have actual workers on the site doing the work right at that moment. So that's my understanding, at least from here, is to commence actual construction by that date or immediately after that date.
Okay. All right, thank you. Moving on to our next attendee, Miriam. Oh, she took, all right. She did not want to be promoted. All right, I'll go to the next person, Avi. Go ahead, Avi.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, so my name's Avi Kaner. Morty Sloan is also on the webinar, but he's at another location. We're the owners of Morton Williams Supermarkets. And I just wanted to give the committee some background because I think it'll help you understand what's going on. So we signed the original lease with NYU was 21 years ago. And we did a kind of a partial renovation because there was always a demolition clause involved. So about a year ago, we signed a new 20-year lease with NYU, knowing that the School Construction Authority had until the end of the year to exercise its option. And we committed to NYU to spend at least $5 million on renovating the store and making a magnificent store once we knew our store would not be demolished. And unfortunately, we heard, yes, your store is going to be demolished. And just to give you background, we've been there for 21 years. We during the COVID, when everyone ran away from the city and we were devastated, the store stayed open 24 hours a day for the community. In fact, when we first opened the store 22 years ago, it was right at 9/11. That was our grand opening week. And we stayed open. We've always been there for the community. And we all have, in our families, we know people, we have children who are disabled and have other mental or physical issues. And I applaud the city wanting to build a school in your community, to bus kids from all over the city to Greenwich Village, to this new school. It's a wonderful thing, and I applaud that. However, the end result will be that Greenwich Village will no longer have a supermarket. And we, between 2,000 and 3,000 people a day shop in our supermarket. So you'll have a great school with people from all over the city, which is wonderful, but you'll have nowhere to eat, nowhere to get groceries. And so we've been working, we've spoken with NYU many times, and we're forming a committee to try to find an alternate location. But as of today, there is no alternate location. And, so what I ask of your committee is to also keep in mind the needs of the families who live in your community, who have school-aged children, who also need places, who need a place to be able to feed their children. And you know, we've been there for the community. We ask that you'll be there for us as well.
All right, thank you, Avi. I understand what you're saying, but we've been advocating for this school for a while. NYU has known our position on this. The community does need both a school and a grocery store. So I just want to make that clear that we don't want to pit the grocery store versus the school. We need both in the community. I'm gonna go now to Mara Fitzgerald.
Hi, yeah, I don't see that it's a zero-sum situation. I feel like we can advocate, and we are advocating for both a school and a supermarket. And I know that there's been talk about relocating the supermarket to 181. I'm curious to know where NYU is with that. But we definitely support, a solution that gives the community both of these critical resources.
Okay, and then you also said that there is a committee that's been established, but I mean, the community board doesn't know about who's on this committee. It would be helpful if NYU would share who's on this committee, or even invite the CB2 to be on this committee for this search.
And CB2 is our Arts and Institutions Committee will have a resolution going before the board specifically about the grocery store next week. So that'll be voted on at our full board meeting on the 20th on March.
Okay, Avi?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So tune in then. I'm now going to move to our committee public member, Shino Tanikawa.
Thank you, Patricia. I want to address Marissa quickly. So if you look at the most recent Blue Book, schools in Community Board 2 are either above 100% utilization or close to it. And other schools in the Western Corridor, Hell's Kitchen, PS11, PS33, those are schools that are showing above 100% utilization rates. So even though the SCA doesn't believe there might be seat needs at the moment, I actually think we probably do, because Blue Books are not exactly accurate in terms of predicting seat needs for schools or utilization rates. They tend to be underestimates. So if a school shows up at 85% to 90% utilization rates, usually the principal will tell you the school feels crowded already. So I do think there's a need for a school, and especially if it's a school for dyslexic children, that school can actually draw students from all over the city. I also wanted to address Mr. Kainer. As a regular shopper at Morton Williams, I go there every Sunday. I love the employees. I know people there and they welcome me. It's a great place to shop. And I was actually shopping there when it was Grand Union. So you can imagine how long I've been shopping at your supermarket. And I really appreciate having that store there, and I need it there. I am a little bit surprised by how NYU entered into this agreement, because my understanding from early on in this process, and Janine and I go back quite a few years on this, I thought NYU was going to offer you space in the Zipper building. That was my understanding. So you're just going to be 3 blocks to the east, and that would have been fine by me. So I'm a little bit confused as to why NYU didn't offer you space, knowing that we need your supermarket in the vicinity. So that's what I just wanted to mention. Thank you.
Do you want me to try to answer that? Or
If you're
Yes.
able to, yes.
yeah, so I cannot speak for NYU because we're a tenant of NYU, And, you know, we've had a very long relationship with NYU, a very positive relationship. And many of our family members actually graduated from NYU, were professors at NYU. And, you know, we have a great relationship with NYU. But I think what happened here is, I think NYU was not expecting this to be exercised because so many years had gone by. And you know, I think they were as surprised as we were. You know, we discovered it when we saw, you know, we read an article in the Village Sun on like the day before Thanksgiving. So you can imagine what it did to our Thanksgiving. It made our Thanksgiving miserable that, you know, here we were going to lose our store. I think they were surprised as we were, but they would be the ones who would have to answer.
Okay, well, we invited them, but they weren't available to come to our meeting tonight. Thank you, Sheena, for that background. I see that Miriam still has his or her hand up. If you could type your question in the chat, then I could read it if you don't want to be promoted. Oh, they've lowered their hands. Okay, so I'm now going to ask our committee one last time if there's any final questions on the Bleecker Street update before moving on to our second agenda item. Is there anything more? Seeing none, I am going to end our discussion in the public session on Bleecker School, and I will punt to Sheena to introduce our speaker. Thank you. Thank you, Joshua.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Avi.
Thank you, Patricia. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shino. I'm co-chair of the Education Council Consortium, which is a grassroots organization of parents, caregivers, advocates, and community members advocating for a just and equitable public school system here in New York City. I first met Sarah, my goodness, I don't even remember how many years ago, several years ago, when she was the adult executive director of Integrate NYC, which is a student organization advocating for integrating our public schools in New York City. And then Sarah left to become a lawyer, and now she's a lawyer, and she and her students work to bring a lawsuit against the city of New York over admissions policies for high school. So I'm just going to leave it at that and introduce Sarah to tell us everything we need to know.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Medina Camasholi. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm joined here today by my colleague, Lupe Sanchez, who is...
Hi everyone, I'm Lupe, I use she, her pronouns, and I am an organizer with one of the law firms that brought the lawsuit.
And so we are here today sharing a screen, so excuse the tech sort of coordination and choreography. I'm going to share with you about active litigation right now that is happening in New York City. And I'm going to use, can you allow me to share screen so I can share a bit? All of the who and the what and the where will be in this slide deck, and there will be many opportunities to ask questions now, but also later on, so that folks have other agenda items here that can get complete. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep, we can see.
Beautiful. Okay, y'all, so like I said, my name is Sarah Medina Camasholi. I am one on the executive team of the Peer Defense Project. And if you're asking, what is the Peer Defense Project? And I thought the person next to her was from somewhere called Public Counsel. We're going to get into all of that. So the intention of me meeting with you all today is to share about the lawsuit to demand relief for 1.2 million students and families facing school segregation and racism in New York City, and to invite the community to learn and participate in the litigation and advocacy efforts. So the mission of the Peer Defense Project is it is a special project of Integrate NYC that builds, incubates, and shares legal tools to support youth leaders to build autonomy, power in school, courts, and government. To give a little bit of a background of really the grounding of this conversation is today, New York City schools teach 1.2 million youth in the most segregated schools in the nation, If you're thinking to yourself, what does that mean? It means that the exposure that students across different racial identities have to one another is the least in New York, specifically for Black students, relative to every other school district in the nation. In New York, schools incarcerate youth in some of the most expensive prisons in the nation, and government prohibits youth from voting, running for office, sitting on school boards, and voting on school boards, I should say, or litigating. And so really what our project does is work with young people who are working to dismantle inequity and to support them to build legal tools and to build resources, autonomy, and power to address the issues that they're saying are most pressing. I'm going to give you a little bit of history about the case and about the project before I jump into the nitty-gritty of the litigation. So this is me when I met Shino in 2014. I was a public school teacher in District 7 of the South Bronx. I was an ESL teacher, which meant that I taught English as a second language. And the story that I often tell and how I got into the work of school desegregation was many of my students were native English speakers, meaning every day they were forced to sit in ESL classrooms, and they would ask me regularly, why am I in ESL if I speak English? And I didn't really have an answer to that question. I started doing some research and finding the many different ways that students are placed in certain schools, in certain classrooms, in certain programs, against their will, against their family's will, and oftentimes a result of oversight or assumptions that are made about what students can do. And so I started thinking about this, and at that time, the UCLA report on school segregation came out. UCLA has a legal project in Los Angeles, and they do system-wide studies of school systems. And they found that New York had the most segregated schools of any school district in the nation. And why this is a huge issue is because New York has some of the most progressive and supportive policies, and this is in direct violation of those policies and those movements. So the students and I started working together, students across many different schools, and identifying what are the impacts of schools that separate us, that sort us. And beyond what Shino was saying at high school, at every level, at the age of 3 or 4, taking tests to get into specialized programs, resource inequity across building and facilities. We're talking clean water, we're talking clean air, we're talking asbestos and lead, we're talking crowded hallways, we're talking classrooms that are large enough to hold students, everything to pencils, markers, computer access, Wi-Fi access. We're talking about up-to-date curriculum, textbooks. We're talking about teachers who are trained to deliver information that's linguistically and culturally responsive so that students can engage and see themselves in the curriculum and actually understand it. We're also talking about lack of mental health supports in school for students, many of whom have experienced adverse trauma. So really thinking about not just who is in the building and who sits next to me and what do they look like, but really about equity. And what New York State promises is that our school system is supposed to prepare young people to participate in modern democracy. That's what our public schools are supposed to do. Support young people to vote, sit on juries, and participate in civic society. And when we divide young people and we divide resources, and young people are unaware of the issues most pressing in their communities, our argument is that they are not prepared to do that. And so students started to design a multiple point platform. This included removing barriers to access to certain schools, creating more resource equity, creating culturally and linguistically responsive curriculum, making sure there's teacher diversity in the school force, and focusing on behavioral interventions that support youth development instead of punish and harm and contribute to the school to prison pipeline. And if there's anything that I'm saying in this conversation where you think to yourself, that's just a phrase they say, or I don't even know what that means, please put it in the chat, and I would really love to direct you to any resources possible, because everything that I'm sharing here today has come from our youth and also come from the litigation, which has been a huge team of folks, so I would really love to share resources. We had Mayor de Blasio and Chancellor Carranza accepted a huge group of nonprofits came together, about 70 nonprofits, and built a solution for segregation in our communities. And they really focused on the solution that I just shared, that the students identified, those areas of impact. And the mayor and the chancellor agreed to implement those solutions. And then COVID-19 hit, none of those solutions were truly implemented. And in fact, we've seen worsened conditions in many of the schools that inspired us to bring this lawsuit. And so our students said, we want to be able to bring different tools. We don't want to be meeting with folks on a regular basis who in closed door rooms tell us they're going to make these solutions, go out in public, bring us out to press conferences and make these promises to us. And then we go through the whole school system dealing with enormous inequities and there's not a single change. And when a new administration comes in, they can simply just change whatever protections we had prior. So we built this litigation. It's called Integrate NYC versus New York. Et al. In the legal space just means and other parties. So this lawsuit includes the Coalition for Educational Justice. It includes PS 132 Parents for Change and 14 students and families from across all 5 boroughs. The defendants and who we brought it against includes the city of New York, the New York State Department of Education, the mayor, the chancellor, the state of New York, state regent, state commissioner, and really New York State and New York City as one entity. So I just want to share a little bit about the lawsuit, and I'm going to put all of the documents in the chat so folks can do their own research as well. So the lawsuit says that New York State manages the nation's largest and most segregated school district, segregated public schools where students experience resource inequalities, a lack of culturally responsive curriculum, lack of mental health supports, lack of teacher representation, and racialized pipelines, meaning barriers to school and access to certain programs that track along certain racial groups. This violates 3 laws. First, the New York State Constitution protection that all students receive a sound and basic education. Second, that no people experience unequal protection of the laws in New York and intentional discrimination. And third, that young people, especially young people of racial minorities, but in New York City is obviously a majority, do not experience race-based harassment and or experience disparate impact, meaning it's more likely to be kept out of certain schools if you're of a certain identity. The lawsuit was brought by public counsel, my colleague Lupe right here, and Sidley Austin, with many other attorneys. This is the filing, and I'm going to put all of this in the chat so you all have this resource available to you. Also, we worked with our young people to make sure that the plaintiffs fully understood the lawsuit and that teachers and parents could fully understand the lawsuit as well. And so we've designed multilingual Know Your Case technology. I'm going to put the link to that as well. We have an intergenerational press conference where our plaintiffs spoke about this case and how it really impacted them and why they joined, as well as materials in English, Spanish, Mandarin, and French, which can explain the lawsuit and the legal arguments, acknowledging that oftentimes litigation is inaccessible to the people who we say litigation is for, and that this is a lawsuit we want to make sure that folks on school boards, folks in advocacy groups, impacted folks' families fully understand so that we're engaging deeply with the community and the impact is one that is felt, meaningful, and responsive. And so before I jump into questions, I wanted to invite you all here. We are running a national public forum on the lawsuit to talk about the ways that culturally responsive education isn't just about did students learn something that they can, did students learn about the food their parents cook them at home? That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about, again, is an education that fairly and equitably invites the 1.2 million students, 80% of which 85% of which are students of color, to be able to fully engage in society, fully ground themselves in their power as civic participants in a moment in which our young people are facing global pandemia, young people are facing hate-based, racialized hate crimes, young people are seeing racial insurrections, young people are experiencing the prospect of world war, real issues that are frightening, that are confusing, and that are unthinkable for some young people, many young people. And so how do we understand this lawsuit as being, for us, one of the many tools or demanding tools for young people to really engage in this world? And so I'm going to put in the chat, I'd love for you all to be at that public forum. The keynote speakers are one of the founders, youth organizers in the lawsuit, O'Brien Rosario, who is a New York City DOE alum, and Benjamin Crump, who, if anyone recognizes his name, he's one of the attorneys on the case as well. He was the attorney for Trayvon Martin's family and for Breonna Taylor's family. And so he'll be talking about the importance of anti-racist education impacting other public infrastructures as well. And so I'm going to put these materials in the chat for y'all, but I really just want to make myself available for you for questions, to learn about. Okay, yes, I am happy to, maybe I can work with the panelists here to send an email to folks with those links after. But for now, yeah, I'm here to answer questions. And just to be very clear, I'm not here to debate the merits of the case, meaning I'm not here to debate the if it's true or if it's not true. I'm here to share from the lawsuit that we have filed, and to clarify questions about that. So I just want to be really transparent about what I'm here to do is to answer questions about the lawsuit, and to direct people to resources, and to invite people to come to future conversations. So thank you so much for your listening.
Thank you, Sarah. That was quite an eye-opening journey that we live daily. I have a question from Keen. You had your hand raised, Keen?
Yes. So you filed the lawsuit, then what happens next? I mean, what looks like it's going to happen now?
Thanks, Keen. That's a really good question. So we filed the lawsuit a year ago, and we filed it in New York Supreme Court, and it can take a while for the case to move throughout the court. So while we've been waiting for the judge to rule, we filed, and the city and the state filed motions to dismiss, meaning that they said that these claims have no merit. Yes, the schools are segregated, but these do not violate the laws. And that we can continue to maintain our schools as such. And what you have alleged in the complaint is not necessarily a violation. And so they've asked the judge to throw the case out. We then replied and said why that there still are violations. And so now we're waiting on the judge to rule on whether we move forward to trial, whether the judge suggests that maybe the judge decides that there isn't a merit, and then if we have to appeal, right, there's many different routes. So right now we're waiting on the judge, but again, this case isn't only about the actual filing. It's also about educating the public and inviting people to understand the case and to weigh in and help us to make sure that we're being responsive to needs. And so the next thing that's actually happening is, I'm going to put the flyer in the chat for you. You know what, I might not be able to do that, so I might have to email y'all, but is the forum. So I'd love for you to come to that and hear more from our speakers. We'll have people who deal with issues with young people ranging from COVID-19 to racialized hate crimes, talking about the importance of this. So right now, as we wait, we're doing a lot of public education and engagement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keen. Michael?
Hi, thank you. This is very powerful stuff. I had two questions I typed into the chat that I would just reiterate so you could address them to whoever's not reading along. But the question was, one, what is the lawsuit asking for remedies? And second, I made a snark that it's like Brown versus Board of Education, excuse me, never happened.
Yes. Okay. So, I saw something else in the chat as well. I put in the chat the event to answer Keen's question. Can you say again, Michael? Your question was.
The heart of the question is simply, what is the lawsuit asking for remedies?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So I'm actually gonna show you all right now. So, I think sometimes these court documents can be difficult to read. I'm gonna direct you to that right now. I wish that I could put this in the chat so people could read this with me. Hold on. Let me pull this up for you.
Can you share?
I think I can. I'm just moving around. Okay. So if you go into the court document, and I always like to show people this because these are supposed to be public documents that we all can read and engage in, and they just so often aren't. And so if you go to page 83 in the document, you can see where it says request for relief. And so what we talked about here is first injunctive relief. So injunctive relief means asking the court to require the school system to do something. That's what injunction means. And so here the demand is to have all of the defendants in New York State eliminate and remedy any intentional discrimination and disparate impact, which means specific policies that harm certain groups of students, particularly students of certain racial groups, more than others, and to ensure the elimination of gifted and talented and middle and high school admissions, discriminatory screens, and to prohibit screens that have that disparate impact, to adopt evidence-based programs to improve recruitment and retention of school leaders, administrators, teachers, and social workers and guidance counselors of color, to monitor and enforce schools' compliance with New York State's culturally responsive and education framework, and to establish a system of accountability where the state monitor conditions that deny students access to a sound basic education. That means physical facilities, instruments, tools for learning, and curriculum that's up to date. To address disproportionately low numbers of school leaders, administrators, teachers, and guidance counselors of color, and failure to provide sufficient mental health supports, including trauma-informed practices, to intervene in a timely manner, and to have a declarative relief. That means the court saying, yes, segregated, racially harmful schools violate these laws. And of course, other relief that the court deems just and proper, because as you move through litigation and there's engagement with both parties, then new issues can be uncovered and clarified as well. So I will put the link to that in the chat as well.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Only if the panelists say you can, Michael.
Sure, go ahead.
They know me too well. Some of you heard me say this before, but my dad wrote and implemented the integration plan for Berkeley, California. So in physical terms, what are you envisioning it would take to integrate the New York City school system?
Sure. So I think in the demand for relief, I think you can see some of those pieces there. So right now, looking specifically at the use of discriminatory screens, a lot of the discrimination that we see specifically at the high school level is this idea of choice, and then the choice being dictated by certain screens and requirements for certain families to get into certain schools. And so really that takes an enormous amount of discovery and research to really create that solution together. There's a large group of plaintiffs, but if you look at resources such as the School Diversity Advisory Group, created a list of recommendations for explaining what integration could look like. This was one of the promises that the prior administration made to a large group of people in terms of a plan. And so I invite you to look at the School Diversity Advisory Group's policy plan. It's not, it's not a group of 2 or 3 lawyers coming up with a plan. It was years and years of community organizations and researchers and advocates coming together to design that, as well as the work that has been done by CEJ, the work of PS 132 Parents for Change. Those are really the guiding principles that got us to that relief. And that's really the definition of integration. But this lawsuit isn't only about integration. This lawsuit also is about racialized harm in schools, which is a related issue, very much so, but it's about both of those things.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Shino?
Thank you, Patricia. So can you hear me, by the way? Okay,
Yes.
good. All right, I wasn't lighting up on the screen, sorry. So disparate impact and de facto versus de jure. Our segregation in New York City is considered de facto segregation because the policies are not outwardly or explicitly racist. Does the intent of these policies matter to this lawsuit? And if so, how does it affect the case?
Yeah, thanks so much, Shino, for asking that. So folks, if you're thinking like, what did Shino just say? De jure means of law, for Spanish speakers, right? Of law, and then de facto, of fact. And so people like to sort of draw this line that de jure means that if New York City, oftentimes what we see as the example and what Brown v. Board outlawed was Jim Crow South. No Mexicans in this school, no Blacks in this school, whites only in this school, right? But that's actually not always a really fair division, de jure versus de facto, because the law in New York says that there's a specialized exam that we know has an unfair impact on certain groups of students. And so some of the questions around de jure versus de facto, it just happens to be, versus the idea of intent versus it just happens to be. Intent can be seen in many ways. For example, when we look at the Hecht-Calandra Act, the act that actually designed the specialized high schools, there's a history in that act that shows that the initial intent of how the admissions were designed was to decrease the number of Black and Puerto Rican students in the specialized high schools. Just be with that for a second. The intention of the law was to design an admissions policy that made sure that people like me and my mother as Puerto Ricans, only a few of us got in. And that for the Black families on this call, only a few Black families got in. That was the intent. It was based specifically on race. And so even though currently that's not what's written, intents can be discerned by many different things. Additionally, when the city and the state have said over and over and over again in reports, in press conferences, in policy statements, that they acknowledge specifically the existence of segregation and racial disparities, and yet the policies haven't changed, that also shows intent. You can think about intent such as if you know when you open the door that you stub your neighbor's toe, and your neighbor has said over and over again, you stub my toe, you stub my toe, and yet every morning you wake up and you continue to open the door and stub the toe. What is intent there? Is that an accident? You are aware that you are actively doing it. It doesn't mean that you go to the door and you may say, when I open this, I hope to stub their toe. But you are, and you know that's the outcome of your actions. Yeah, thanks, Atina, for that point. So I think that, and when Michael said, Brown v. Board, states like New York, initially during the civil rights movement, intentionally were not included in a lot of the regulations at the federal level. So state legislators actually worked actively to make sure that New York was not required to have oversight. This conversation about school integration and racism has not just started today or when we filed. Actually, the largest civil rights demonstration in history was in 1964 when Black and Puerto Rican students had a massive school boycott over de facto, what they were calling de facto segregation. And they were saying, why aren't people holding our school districts accountable? We know what our schools look like. And so I think I challenge people to think beyond the divides of North and South, de facto and de jure, intent, and how you understand intent and knowledge, and to think intentionally about, since 2014, the New York City Department of Education has had clear as day a report that has identified it as the most segregated school system in the nation. And in 2018, that report was renewed to say that it still is. And so the question is, when you have that knowledge, how do you move? How do you respond? What do you do? Someone asked, what recourse do families have if schools, communities weaponize school policies to adultify Black and brown kids? I'm not quite sure if by adultification, the reference there is disparate discipline, but I encourage anyone who has specific questions. Okay, thanks, Atina. I would look specifically in the complaint that Mar just put in, and if you search discipline, and if you search suspension, you can see specifically where there are violations. We are particularly working on this systemic lawsuit. I invite people, if they have particular legal needs, you can reach out to us and we can let you know whether there's a specific recourse in the suit or if there are other legal services organizations that might do more direct responsive work for individual needs. I hope that that's helpful. And I invite people to email this email with any additional questions on that. Put it in here for y'all. But beyond all that, I would really ask people here to, if you have questions, to email that. I ask everyone, if you could, to follow Peer Defense on Instagram. But more than anything, I would really love to have all of you join our Eventbrite, and I ask you all to to join us for that conversation. And yes, I definitely appreciate, Atina, I think some of the terms that you'll see in the lawsuit are specifically legal terms that relate specifically to rights violations under New York state law. There are also other terms and other conversations that I think are really important to have in tandem with that. And so I hope that you come to the forum, because we're going to be having conversations both about the lawsuit itself, the terminology, the issues and the themes, and then also all of the related issues and how to make connections of them.
Thank you, Sarah. I have Georgia Savara-Siemens.
Oh, hi, Sarah. My question is, what are some of the arguments you anticipate the other side making? Thanks.
Sure, Georgia. So I can just share what they've made already, and they're pretty shocking. The first argument is that segregated schools can provide an education to prepare children to participate in modern democracy. Another argument that was made is that students have protections to equal protection in schools in New York. Another argument that was made was that hundreds of allegations, or I should say in the complaint, dozens of allegations of race-based harassment in schools does not show a system-wide problem. It just shows a collection of some. And I'm not interested in triggering people here, but I really invite you to look at the race-based harassment allegations. They are across many different racial groups. They are very harmful, and they have come from students and teachers. And so the city has claimed that a new intervener, that means that a parent organization that believes that their interests will be harmed if there was culturally responsive curriculum and diversity in our schools promoted, called Parents Defending Education. They specifically said that they believe that New York State can design separate but equal schools. So they actually are going so far to believe that New York City can specifically design separate schools for white students, separate schools for Black and Latinx students, and that as long as they have equal resources, that is not a violation of law. Parents Defending Education also wrote in their brief that they believe that, and the city also leaned into this as well. For me, this was probably one of the most offensive claims, that even if these things are true, there is poverty in our district, and the health problems of families might be the real issue behind educational inequities. And so I really invite people to join our public forum, because as a Puerto Rican woman, as a former public school educator, as a future mother who will be sending my children to the New York City public schools, as a civil rights attorney, these are conversations that many people have had many conversations with members of the state, members of the city. And in those conversations, there may be some people with good intentions, but this is actually what people are asking to be the law. This is actually how people are trying to scale back responsibility. And so I really invite people to join the public forum. I really invite people to get very clear on what the asks are, because when George's question, when people are asking what are the arguments made against, the arguments made against are just what the city and state are claiming are your rights as families, are your children's rights. And that for me is really understand, really engage around, and really holds the city and state accountable for when it comes to these filings in court mean something. They mean something, and they can't just live on a docket. People need to fully understand them. They're public documents, and they impact the work.
Thank you very much for your response. It's deeply, I'm deeply upset, not by you as the messenger, but just especially that first, oh my goodness, the first argument. I cannot even find the words to express how disgusted and upset I am. And frankly, I think, it's frightening that this is the reality of our public schools, but also that this is a known fact at the city and state level. Our government officials, and they seem quite comfortable with maintaining this status quo. So really appreciate the work that you're doing along with your colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. And I do want to apologize for any harm that I have caused for folks just trying to, have dinner on a Monday night. This is really triggering material. And I want to name as well that, especially for the folks of color in the room, this is not easy to hold. And I'm here to process and talk through material with people. I'm not just here to deliver, but also to really stay committed on the case. I did want to say one other thing as well, that this is getting really tied in with the perversion of culturally responsive education as a CRT issue. First, it was really a focus by the interveners, and now the city has also filed a document in which they claim things such as conservative schools have smaller achievement gaps than progressive schools. And so we're seeing like a whole new level of conversation. And I think it's so important for leaders like you all who are in schools, on the ground, on boards, to be present at these public forums, to share your perspectives. And I want to be supportive so that we really are building this lawsuit in a way that is responsive to need. I see that Mar has had their hand up for a bit.
Yes, go ahead, Mar.
Thanks. I'm curious, have you had a chance to talk to, get a response from, interact in any way with our new mayor and chancellor?
Thanks for asking that question, Mar. So as an attorney on the case, we cannot communicate with the defendants without representation. And so we haven't had the conversation that we've been having with the new mayor and the new chancellor is in their court documents. And so I can share now with you all the link. I actually want to show people how to do this. I think it's so important. I'm going to show you all this. So if you would like to see that conversation, thanks for that question, Mar.
You gonna share your screen?
Yeah, I'm going to. This is the this is the New York State Unified Court District website, and this is a public site. So if you want to see the conversation going on, I just wanted to show you, you can save this case, the Integrate NYC case. You can save it on your docket. I just wanted to show y'all that the conversation is in these documents. And I really want to be here for you all. Can you all see this? Like, it looks like an Excel spreadsheet now. Yeah, okay. So if you scroll down, this is the conversation, Mar. This is the back and forth, the many documents that have been filed. And so what I would—
it's not, sorry, Sarah, it's not showing. It's still the New York State Unified portal, not the downloaded document things.
How about this? Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So what I would look at is the date that the chancellor and the mayor started. And that basically is when their attorneys started to file conversation for them, right? So if you're thinking about the new administration and what's being said publicly versus what's in these documents, you can look at the date here and you can really say, on October 12th, they said this on Channel 7, but it looks like the city said this in their court documents. And I think that's important to look at because both of them are public facing materials, but not all the time is the public really engaging with this docket. And again, that's why we have attorneys and organizers like Lupe with us to really support, to make sense of these documents.
All right, thank you for that, Sarah. I am speechless in hearing what you just delivered also, but oh, Sheena, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry to take up two spots, but for those people who may not be aware, I just wanted to mention when Sarah said that one of the responses was that the segregated schools can educate children. Okay, well, sorry, I'm just have to sit in that space. It's sometimes a little bit difficult. I just wondered if part of that is because the current chancellor used to run a group of 6 schools, Eagle Academy, which are by design for boys, Black boys, although you don't have to be because they can't discriminate against race, but he probably thinks that his model is a success, and it may be, but I just wondered if that's where it came from. But looking at the dates of replies, those replies came way before the chancellor started.
Yeah, no, those were, that reply was specifically way before this administration started, with the prior administration that actually supported the integration efforts. And the difference is not the idea of an intentional school that was made to be supportive and have Afrocentric curriculum for young boys. That's not how that was framed. The framing was, if there were, and this is specifically with parent spending education, if there were two separate school systems designed and that they had equal access to the minimum requirement, there would be no violation. And so it's not sort of an intentional creation of affinity spaces or responsive schools. It is the idea that you can create barriers to entry and racialized pipelines, and that is okay, because the young people who have gone through those can still, the belief is that they can still participate. And the argument is that they can vote, they can serve on juries, and really think about what that means, what it means to serve on a jury, what it means to vote. That's the conversation there. And so, yes, I really appreciate that, what you brought in about look at the dates. And again, I'm not claiming that any of the defendants saw those documents. I don't quite know what those conversations were, but those documents are representative of them. The attorneys are representing those people. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that, and to acknowledge that our lawsuit has spanned across multiple administrations. We initially filed when Cuomo was in office. Now we have a new administration, and the demands have not changed.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to our attendee for questions. I'm going to promote Atina. Go ahead, Atina, you can unmute yourself.
I think actually she answered my question. Is that why you're bumping me up?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Yeah, she actually answered my question already. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. I'm promoting Lupe.
Thank you so much. You did answer part of my question Mar had asked regarding what the response has been from this administration thus far. And I do know that a lot of the work that has already been done was with the prior administration. I guess the second part of that question would be, is recently you talk a lot about cultural responses, sustaining education being weaponized, as we've seen nationally regarding CRT, but I've also seen even on a local level within our district, affinity groups, as well as restorative justice being attacked in this same notion. And is there, I haven't had a chance to read the whole docket and such, so I just thought I would ask if any part of that is included, and if you could just speak on that. And then the other part is what we as parent leaders can do to help at this point in moving this forward. And I'm just as flabbergasted and aghast by everything that you've told us in their defense is unacceptable. And I just think it's time we hold them accountable at this point.
Thank you, Lupe. So I was hearing specifically around discipline and sort of trying to dismantle restorative practices. If you look into the complaint, I always try to tell people sort of the quick way to find it, because there's just so much there. If you look up stuff around discipline or on suspension, you'll see that we wrote a lot about disparate discipline rates across the city. And that's with the existing restorative interventions that the city has taken, right? So to your point, if people are asking to dismantle those with the existing facts and the allegations, then there really is sort of a denial of how disparate these outcomes are with discipline, and that a disregard for if they should continue to be improved, or if it's just okay to sort of let them worsen. So I hope that that answers your question. And the complaints in the chat, and I'm going to send out an email to maybe Patricia and I could work together on this, just getting like a whole resources page out to people. In terms of what you can do, please get everyone you know at this event. Get everyone you know at this event who cares about the next generation's ability to face a world in crisis. Get everyone you know. Because getting everyone we know at that event has us crowdsource ideas, crowdsource concerns, crowdsource questions. The court is supposed to be a place to mediate rights violations. And the rights violations are against all of you. It's not supposed to be a private place that no one knows what's happening. And so to get as many people as you can to that conversation so that people are fully aware of the way that the court is mediating rights the way that the defendants are trying to mediate their rights through the court and through the court, and then versus how they may be mediating that in other conversations. It's a double speak, right? I think making sense of that would be really helpful, because I think the more people have an awareness of that, the more grounded advocacy can be, the more clarifying rights are. For me, it's really about people. I see knowing your rights and knowing your cases is a similar way as knowing your health and going to the doctor and getting a checkup and getting clarity about what's going on in your body. And so thinking about the public, local government and public infrastructure and the school system as a body, these are diagnoses and these are updates and these are nutritional facts. So please join to have real clarity on that and to really ask the attorneys and the activists questions, and then to connect with people, right? You may see Julian Han, who is an attorney who represented the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families. You may see her speak and be like, I really want to connect with her about this issue around API hate that I experienced in my school. Or you may see Maurice Blackman, who's an educator and an equity coordinator in a school in the Lower East Side, and think, wow, now I really see the connection between the equity work happening at my school and the lawsuit. I want to ask Maurice how he's thinking about this. And also there will be access also to the materials to be able to share them in your classrooms, talk to your kids about them, so that, again, we really want this lawsuit to move the material resources, to have the Declaration of Rights, but also to have the incredible families and parents and students of New York City experience autonomy in the law and institutional power from a place of awareness, a place of groundedness, a place of clarity. So those are the ways you can really help, Lupe, and thank you for asking.
Thank you, Lupe. Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any questions from
I
our?
have a question. I've been perusing these court documents. So I see that the Attorney General has repeatedly attempted to dismiss. And in fact, in their last correspondence, they say that the group that you mentioned, what is it, Parents Defending Ridiculousness, also filed to dismiss. How can we, besides showing up, how can we help? Can we write a resolution that goes directly to A.G. James and Governor Hochul, put pressure on them and let them know that this is so wrong, that I can't believe they're fighting it. Like, that's, how are they fighting this? What can we do?
So Mar, what I would suggest is come to the event, and then there's a group of community members that are going to meet and have a strategy session after that conversation. And so I'd love to connect you with that coalition of advocates, so that you all can really have that conversation in response. That will be happening after the event, about a week later. And so if you come to the event, we wanted to create sort of shared language around the case, shared language around the issues, and then create space and support our coalition partners to be able to have that strategic conversation. And so we will have the information for that event from our coalition partners at the public education event.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and I really want to name, like staying in my lane right now as an attorney. I think that it's important for the attorneys to work on the case and to create space for community members to think strategically, but not to control that work. And so if it feels like I'm sort of passing the buck, it's also out of respect for your needs, for the community's needs, for your priorities, and how you see a relationship to the case and how you see a relationship to your existing organizing and advocacy. And so I'm definitely we'll be sharing that information. Some of the youth organizers, I believe, will be hosting it who are based in New York City.
Thank you. Sarah, if you could drop that Eventbrite link again in the chat, that would be helpful. Yeah, thank you. I don't see any last questions from no attendees. I want to thank you again for enlightening us, even though I'm still speechless and it's hard to process, but I will try to get to that event to learn more, to spread the word. And in business session, we will discuss what we can do as a committee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for coming. Shino, do you have any last words?
Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us, and count on us to get mobilized and organized.
Yep,
We're fighting this.
Of course, and all of you, this is a familiar face. You will know when you reach out, you will be seeing us together. Lupe is some of the brains behind our organizing, and outreach. So thank you all for meeting with me today. It's been a blessing to be in conversation with you. Be easy, take care of yourselves after this conversation. I always tell people that we need folks very grounded and in this work. And so I'm here as a support and a resource to think through this strategy, and I'm just so grateful for the way you show up every day. I know all these names from many, many places. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. With that, I am going to move on to our third agenda item, which is a discussion of food service bonuses for school food service workers who work throughout the pandemic, providing meals to students and the community at large. I got a correspondence from a principal in our district recently that said that his school food worker, she showed up, and like many others over COVID, daily to provide food to students and families in need, but they have not gotten a increase in raise, and they just want some acknowledgement. And it seems like they're not getting any of that. So I know that you had reached out to the principal and some community food advocates, and I just want you to relay what you found out to the committee.
Thank you, Patricia. So community food advocates, it is a union issue, and they don't necessarily get involved in the union issue. So Liz Eckles, who is the executive director, said that she would talk to the union reps who attend their meetings, but she wasn't really sure how community food advocates can get involved in this particular issue. So we'll have to wait and see what information they can get out of the union reps that they work with, but I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think if they're not being acknowledged, we can acknowledge them here, right? These people worked around the clock through the pandemic in unsafe conditions, without proper PPE much of the time. Or is it PPP? can't remember, they couldn't even get masks for the first 2 months of the pandemic. They were not given by the DOE N95s. And the union, in fact, had to buy their own 20,000 masks, but that didn't cover the 9,000 people that were working in rotation for any significant period of time. They fed families. They were all of a sudden feeding adults. Their schedules were completely skewed. They were being sent to sites far from their homes. I mean, they really worked hard. And I would like to acknowledge that, but I also think that they deserve, because they were officially deemed essential workers, overtime and hazard pay. They are greatly deserving of this. And what really got my goat is that on March 10th, Eric Adams put on a huge ceremony for our food heroes. But there was no talk of actually compensating these people who put their lives in danger to feed our children and our families compensation for their hard work. So I don't know if we're writing a resolution, but I'd be happy to write a letter or a resolution to that fact, because, a certificate is not enough.
Yes,
And
I
I
agree.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to also mention that these are people who fed everybody. It didn't matter if you had a kid in public school or not during the pandemic. The height of the pandemic, they were feeding the entire community, right? Regardless of whether you were a parent or not. And it's unbelievable to me that they had no monetary compensations of any kind.
Yeah. Janine, would you like to comment?
Yeah, sure. I put it in the chat, but I also just want to say it. I was looking through my old emails because periodically we would check in with them to see how many people they were serving, because we heard from community members. At one point, one email I found, and we're going to collect the information, is they gave out nearly 14,000 meals on a day in August of 2020. School wasn't even in session. So this is just people in the community in need of food. And 14,000 meals is a lot of meals. And I don't know how this exactly compares, but I think anecdotally, I think this was one of the busier sites downtown in terms of meals given out.
Thank you, Janine. I don't want to move to business session. I just want to go to attendee and hear from anyone who had. Miriam, do you have a comment, question?
I think they're gone.
You please unmute yourself.
Hi, this is Miriam. How are you?
Hi.
The talk this evening is amazing, and I'm so happy that Chino is there. Okay, and all of you guys. Acknowledging the people of school food and people who cooked in the cafeterias and served food to all the communities in New York City is overdue. Actually, we had a district leadership meeting with the superintendent last week. And I just mentioned I felt the urge to say thank you to the cafeteria manager and her amazing team. And what you're saying tonight about writing resolution is absolutely necessary. And if you want to send it to other CBs, community boards, and community education councils, Shino knows. I mean, if you send it to Shino, she will send it to all the ECCs, and then we will all have it. I think it's overdue. It's really overdue. And I absolutely support the notion of compensating them, because I can tell you that my manager, one of the managers I know, had already had COVID twice, and she would stop and come back to work no matter what. So yeah, I don't know who said that she's going to write something. Please do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Of course.
Yes, thank you. And seeing no other questions, I am now going to move to business session. And in business session, we cannot take comments or questions from attendees, and it's just the panelists that will be able to discuss our next steps. Okay, so now starts business session. All right, committee. We'd like to start with Bleecker Street and then move from there. We're definitely going to write a resolution. Any comments or?
I just want to share this. Oh, sorry. I'll raise my hand.
Go ahead, Janine.
I just want to share that today, the arts, I was copied on the draft resolutions that the Arts and Institutions Committee sent out. And I just want to say they are specifically writing a resolution on relating to the Morton Williams grocery store and NYU's verbal commitment to sit down with Morton Williams to find a location. And many aspects of that is, what the grocery store is critical, we support it. Elected officials and community representatives from CB2 and elsewhere should be part of those conversations. I understand those would need to be private conversations, but that we should have some community representation. So the whole issue of the grocery store was being addressed at the Arts and Institutions Committee. So I don't think our committee needs to feel bad. And Avi Kaner, and he was on the Morton Williams team was on that call. So I don't think this committee needs to focus on that, as it's not really the focus of this committee.
Okay,
we
so
can acknowledge it, but
okay, but we will just acknowledge the school portion in a reso. Okay, got it. Georgia?
Yeah, I'm still, I guess, confused, unsure about this intent deadline of December 31st, 2023, because it seems that the SCA could decide not to pursue the building of the school. Like, it's not a guarantee that they're going to build. Like, we're not guaranteed that on or before 12/31/2023, they wouldn't say, actually, we've just changed our mind. Especially because it seems there's some wiggle room around this capacity question. So I would really like that to be a part of the resolution, that, we're sort of demanding a commitment, like we are definitely going to build there. And we're just getting our ducks in a row between now and 12/31/2023. It just would be such a, I don't know, a betrayal if they took all this time and then ended up not breaking ground. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, I noted that, Georgia. Thank you. Any more comments regarding that from our committee?
Yes, can I?
Sure, go ahead.
So I think I might have to ask Janine to explain this to me again, right? So the SCA never actually committed to build a school there in the capital plan. I'm looking at the capital plan and the language is kind of wishy-washy. It just says SCA will exercise the option to, it's just the language is very confusing to me. The SCA has extended the option on the period of time to exercise the opportunity to develop a school at Bleecker Street. So all that says is that they have more time to consider it. So SCA actually never said that they will build the schools there. Is that correct?
they did, and they reversed themselves. So I'm trying to pull up. So that is what happened. So right, that was what I'm trying to find the documents. I'll pull up the letters and we'll put those on CB2 website. Let me pull those up so it's just clear. Give me a
Janine,
moment.
Janine, I thought it was also in the 5-year plan of the DOE.
Yeah, it was,
on
but
the
that was,
screen.
they're constantly updating the plans. So the language in the SCA capital plan keeps changing.
Yeah,
So
I see that. I see that November. I think this is the November version of the plan that says, the capital plan that says the SCA has exercised the option to develop a school at Bleecker Street, secured as part of the large scale rezoning. So at one point, the SCA exercised the option. And then sometime between that version of the capital plan and the newest version, the SCA retracted that option.
Yes. So can you, Patricia, can you allow me to share this, my screen?
Sure.
Okay, just make me a co-host.
Go ahead.
Okay, so here's the letter from last October 7th, 2021. Whoops, is this the right letter? Gosh, do I not? Nope, this is not the right letter. I'm sorry, I do not have it here. But so there was one letter that the SCA basically said it was going to exercise its option in, and then on December 26th, SCA, the NYU said, we're going to extend the date. And then in January, the SCA said they were going to accept that offer. And you can see from the capital plans changing, we should probably get a chronology on the website with the source documents, just so it's easier for people to follow. And we can just refer people there. But that is what happened. So it always was an option, which was obviously, this was the main community give back from the NYU rezoning, and it wasn't even a solid commitment. It was just an option. And that's why we've been pushing on this. The NYU rezoning was in 2012, and that's, Patricia highlighted how many resolutions we've passed on this. So exactly what Georgia was saying, we've been advocating that we get a school at this site because that was what was promised all along. I see other shaking heads.
Yeah. Keen, I'm ready for you. You're up, Keen.
You know, I was struck that we need to yet again prove that we really need this school. And that because people are, they're waffling about the need. And even Maloney's office is waffling. That's how it looks to me. So Sheena, correctly talked about our old buildings and our 100% capacity nearby. But the other argument is the need for special education for children with learning disabilities is so powerful. And in fact, I see it now personally. As you guys probably know, I'm very involved with my grandchildren. They were in public school the whole time, and one of them still in public school. But the youngest one was diagnosed with learning disabilities and dyslexia, and now goes to a school in Brooklyn, which the tuition is $60,000 a year. And the plan is for the city to pay for that. And it might happen, probably will. I don't know that. But meanwhile, it is a school for rich children, really, or at least middle class. It is not fair that the city, fairness in education is so trashed by not having a special school for children with dyslexia. So we can make that argument. We have to make that argument. We really need that school partly for that reason. That's all.
Thank you, Keen. Sorry to hear that. About your grandson.
Well, it's a great school. Mary McDowell in Brooklyn, by the way. He's learning a lot. But, you know, both his mother and I just are appalled at the privilege of the parents. You know, you have to be a privileged parent or an education advocate to understand what to do
Yeah.
with a child who's got special needs.
Yes.
And, you know, his older brother, they both were in public school the whole time. The older brother is, you know, in a public junior high. You know, I mean, we really believe strongly in public education, but it could not happen. I mean, it's very sad that is how it works. So we need that school desperately for
Yes.
many reasons, but one of them is there needs to be a school for special children that is not 60,000 a year.
Right. Yes. I mean, we've written multiple resolutions on it,
I
as you
know,
know.
but I'm just want to confirm for everybody one more
Yes.
time.
Yes. And now it's the next generation. And we've been fighting not for our
I
own kids,
know,
but the
I
next
know.
generation.
I know.
Yes, thank you, Keen. So any more comments regarding this? We are definitely doing this reso.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Amy.
And if this is going to take too long, I can follow up with Keen or Sheena or afterwards, but who in the political sphere has to get behind this to actually make it happen? Is it the mayor? Is it borough president? Who is it?
I would say the mayor.
So you have
It's
to
his
get a
capital,
mayor.
it's his capital plan, so.
So you have to get a mayor to come out and say, I'm going to go behind this school. I'm going to go for this school. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 2, the Peer Defense Project that was here. Does anyone want to comment? Should I go? No one's jumping up.
I'll say something.
Go ahead, Mar.
So I looked at the court documents, and it is horrifying to me that the way that the letters from AG James' office read, that the state has joined forces with this anti-integration group, Parents Defending Education. They're actually helping each other to keep our schools segregated.
Mm.
I can't even speak.
I know, I know. What you revealed, yeah, I'm speechless. I'm still processing.
Insane. So I don't know if it's a resolution supporting the lawsuit, which we've already done, right? Have we? Can we?
No, we only heard from them, and we had the DOE on the call and they couldn't talk further. Remember,
Yeah.
that was a year ago.
So I think a resolution to support the asks of the lawsuit, A, and B, a letter to Tish James, a letter to Eric Adams. This is just wrong. It's so beyond the technicalities. This is just wrong. And it is completely dehumanizing Black and brown children in the way that they're fighting it. It is sickening. So I don't know what recourse we have, but I'm upset.
Understood. Sheena?
I think Michael
Oh, sorry,
had his hand up
Michael,
first.
you had your hand up, Michael. I'm sorry.
Hi, thanks very much. I know we get confused all the time. I would like to see us put forth a reso that rather than talking about the merits of the case or how disgusting some of the opposition points of view are, which is actually a lot more serious than I remember from my childhood in Berkeley. Back then, the arguments were, my kid's going to be on the bus a long time, but you do have a good point. Not this, maybe you've got health issues. I mean, it's just disgusting. So I'm thinking maybe a resolution that rather than dealing with those merits, we just say this lawsuit's going to make a lot of lawyers rich, and it's going to get dragged out, and our kids don't have the time. What we want to see is some kind of political summit, not a legal process, to resolve this to the satisfaction of the aggrieved parties as soon as possible and press them toward a negotiated settlement that will accomplish the goals. Not wait for a court to dictate one, because one more lawsuit involved, the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, got a decision out of a court in Albany, and then generation after generation of politicians in Albany said, oh, we love that decision, but we can't afford to pay for implementing the result. So my instinct here is that there's got to be a different approach toward meaningful result than saying, oh, that guy in the robe there, he agreed with us, because that doesn't generate political motion, unity, fundraising, or change. Thanks, you got another court result, big deal.
Thanks, Michael. Well, we'll look to you to help write that reso. Sheena.
So do we have any lawyers on the committee? Any of you lawyers? I'm just thinking, I
thought I faked it pretty well there, no?
Not quite. Engineers, lawyers, similar enough, but not really. I'm just wondering, is there any benefit to an amicus brief? And can the community board even file an amicus brief? And what would that do to the lawsuit? I don't have answers because I'm not a lawyer.
Do we have any lawyers on the community board we could ask?
We must have a lawyer.
Yeah,
right?
we do.
Could ask Susan.
Either that or I can actually reach out to Sarah and ask her too.
Yeah, maybe that's the best way.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay.
So if it's possible, is that something that we would like to do?
As a community board, that was the question, Sheena? The amicus, okay.
I guess we'll have to research what that actually means for the community board.
Yeah.
So I'll do a little research.
Thank you. Keen?
Right. Obviously Michael's right that there are a lot of other better things than just going through all the courts, but it is also really useful to do the lawsuit. And we certainly should support the lawsuit. It doesn't, it's not the complete solution, but it's certainly a good step. And the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, they got the lawsuit, and they also did a lot of organizing because of the lawsuit. And I think they finally got some of the money now, 20 years later.
And I just want to jump in terms of, like, for example, there is a lawsuit where Community Board 2 has been asked to write an amicus brief in terms of our positions and public meetings we've held and so forth, or as notarized statement, I should say. And the way that works is that they had to work through the New York City Law Department to sign off on the form of that letter. And then we get it notarized. There is a little bit of if they want to be part of the lawsuit, there is a formal process. If you just want to have a position that you think that is inconsistent with the lawsuit, that's different. But if there is other action, it would have to go through a more formal process.
So does that mean the resolution would be in the form of a letter or a resolution? Because the resolution,
I think if our first step should be to write a resolution. And then if it makes sense to go from there, then you would go through the city's law department and coordinate if there were a statement that Community Board 2 or a larger group of entities support it in some capacity.
But the city is a defendant in the case, so I don't know how that's going to work out, right? So
yeah, but Community Board 2 is part of the city, so
right. Okay, so I guess we can't do an amicus brief.
Yeah. Yes.
We are community.
I defer to the attorneys. Write a resolution, and if you want to do something else, talk to the legal folks.
Okay. All right. Keen, did you have more comments or?
Oh, no, I tried to lower my hand.
Oh,
It didn't lower.
it
Now I'm
worked,
lowering
it worked. Okay, all right, okay, we'll follow up with that, right, Chino, about the amicus, figure that out. And then our last agenda item was about the school food workers. We're definitely writing a resolution in support of them. And do as Miriam says and hope get this passed and then shoot it out through the ECC and through other community boards also. So that's what I have to say on that. Any other comments? No.
Wonderful meeting, Patricia and Mar. Thank you.
And she knows
And Sino, yes, it really was
yeah.
As tender as the topics were, it was just yeah, it was necessary. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Georgia. Michael?
Looking ahead, I've corresponded with a couple of you privately about this. I've talked to more parents along the way. I think there's a lot of interest for a future agenda item, if not with us, then with the CEC, about how hard COVID has been on kids.
Okay. Yes.
Whether it's individual emotional care and support, or something that might not exist yet, like group chance to talk and share experiences. Yeah, I'd like to see us do something on that front.
We did a reso last year and I'll send it to you, but
I'm talking about like putting on an event.
Oh, putting on okay.
I thought we did a whole event on mental health for students with Aquila. We did a huge event and we had a resolution, and several resolutions reference support for SEL practices and training in the schools. And there's funding, by the way, now for the guidance counselors and
Yeah.
what are they called? I guess counselors in schools for kids and expanded wellness programs. So I don't know how much
Thanks.
more we can do for that, but there's a lot in place.
Okay, thank you.
Sheena?
So true, there's a lot in place. True, there's been funding, but I would love to actually hear from people on the ground on how it's all being implemented, because I hear stories, right, of DESA screener being problematic, school counselors not enough, there's not enough money, even though there's supposed to be, school counselors not being culturally responsive. I think there's a lot of issues at the on the ground level. So it wouldn't actually be a bad idea to bring in, if anybody's willing to speak, on how this is all being implemented at the student teacher level.
Okay. Yeah, it's gonna take some organizing, Sheena. Okay. So thank you for that suggestion. We're aware of it, Michael, Sheena. So with that, I think we've exhausted all of our agenda items and we are working on 3 resolutions for this month's full board meeting. And with that, I'd like to call this meeting to an end. Can someone make a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you. Second. I see you, Shino. Thank you. All in favor, say aye. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
Bye. Bye.
Hey, CB2 folks, thank you for letting us co-sponsor this event tonight. I've been trying to host the Peer Defense Project for 2 months and I finally made it. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for bringing them to
You're
us.
welcome.
Always
Good night, everybody.
see you, Sheena.